Good morning. I'm meteorologist Shane Hinton with your September 9th morning tropical update. We're going to kick things off here in the Gulf of Mexico with potential Tropical Cyclone 6. And what this basically means is that this system is expected to become a tropical storm at some point. Now, our forecast is calling for it to become a tropical storm within the morning hours on Monday, maybe into the late afternoon if at the latest, but I do think we will have a Tropical Storm Francine on our hands by the end of today. It's currently moving north-northwest at 5 miles per hour, so very slowly it'll get its act together and have a tighter circulation that will warrant it becoming a tropical storm a little bit later today. As you can see, the current forecast from the National Hurricane Center has it by noon today becoming a tropical storm. It's going to continue moving closer to South Texas before eventually pivoting out to the northeast. It is expected to now become a Category 1 hurricane at least by early Wednesday morning, late Tuesday night. Even though the forecast cone does not have South Texas in its direct path, we are still expecting impacts along the Texas coastline and maybe even further inland. Now, as we move the forecast cone a little bit further into the future, you will notice that portions of East Texas do fall within it, but a majority of the cone, which is used to indicate where the center of the system could pass, is in Louisiana. So right now, statistically, it is leaning more toward a Louisiana landfall late Wednesday evening. Now, something worth noting, like I said, that this is where the center of the system could go. The impacts of the tropical system are going to be a little bit more widespread. Here's why the National Hurricane Center has the forecast cone where it is. The bulk of the spaghetti models, or just a variety of forecast models that are used for predicting tropical weather, have it moving in this general direction. Now, you also see some little outliers here. We've got some random forecast models that are kind of throwing it out a little bit further to the west. That's why we still have to keep our eyes on things here locally in central Texas, but I think our impacts are going to be on the minimum side. Let me show you what the high-res forecast models are indicating. This is the graph model, for example. Not really getting it centered together. We have to look for that tighter defined circulation toward the center for us to finally maybe get an eye here. This is Tuesday morning at 8 o'clock, then eventually makes that northeasterly pivot. Now it's looking like we have a well-defined eye by 6 o'clock Wednesday morning. How long it sits out over the Gulf of those warm waters is going to be one of the contributing factors to whether or not we see it strengthen even further. This forecast model has landfall in Louisiana sometime Wednesday evening around 7:30, 8 o'clock. We'll have to see if that timeline changes at all. You notice that since Austin and central Texas are to the northeast of this system, we are very much on the dry side of this storm. That doesn't mean that we can't see some isolated showers. In fact, my forecast calls for a 10 to 20% chance late Tuesday throughout the day on Wednesday. That's really going to favor the coastal plains at this point. The flood outlook for Tuesday. There is a minor flood risk along the Texas coastline. This just goes to show that even though the center of the system won't be making landfall, or at least at this point in Texas, that we'll still see some tropical rain that could be associated with it. Flash forward into Wednesday. You can see the major flood outlook is impacting Louisiana with a level 3 out of 4. For a good portion, the entire portion of the coastline, and then moving further inland. Now, in regard to the rest of the tropics, well, we have two other areas that we are monitoring a little bit further to the central tropical Atlantic. Earlier this morning, this first area closer to the Lesser Antilles had a 70% chance of development over the next week. It has now been dropped down to a 60% chance, but still moderate potential over the next 48 hours to 7 days. Heading a little bit further out to the east, we have another tropical wave that has a 60% chance of development over the next 7 days. So we've had quite a few developments over the past several days that we'll have to keep our eyes on. And it's not surprising because tomorrow, September 10th, is the historical peak of hurricane season. And just as a reminder, it began on June 1st and it runs all the way till November 30th. So we definitely still have time left in the season for additional activity. Now we are waiting for the National Hurricane Center to officially call this Francine a little bit later today. That potential Tropical Cyclone 6 is what we're expecting to be Francine. If you're curious if those two other systems that we're monitoring become official tropical systems, like a tropical storm at least, our next names are Gordon and then Helene. We will continue to track the tropics for you here in the KVUE Weather Center and provide updates on air and online.